Welcome to our podcast on expanding your English vocabulary together.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for tuning in as we explore 5 powerful words today.
Today we'll cover the words despicable, despise, dignified, dignity, and follow in somebody's footsteps to help new viewers be aware of these vocabs in our podcast. Despicable is an adjective.
It describes something or someone deserving strong contempt or disgust.
The criminal's despicable scheme hurt innocent families.
She called his insults despicable and walked away.
Vandalizing the memorial was a truly despicable act.
The bully's behavior on the bus was despicable to all witnesses.
Many condemned the politician's despicable lies to the public.
She refused to tolerate despicable gossip about her friend.
Stealing from the weak is despicable in every culture.
That despicable prank endangered people's lives.
He described the betrayal as despicable in his book.
The lawyer argued the defendant's actions were despicable beyond excuse.
Poisoning the water supply is a despicable crime.
She called the email's threats despicable and reported them.
Cutting off aid during a crisis is despicable neglect.
He wrote an op-ed on the despicable use of child labor.
Destroying public art is despicable vandalism.
The CEO's betrayal was despicable to all his employees.
Spreading hate speech online is despicable harassment.
She labeled the smear campaign despicable in her statement.
The theft of donations was despicable to the charity's supporters.
He refused to excuse such despicable behavior from his peers.
Burning books is a despicable attack on knowledge.
She described the extortion as despicable in her testimony.
Abandoning pets in winter is despicable cruelty.
Enslaving workers in sweatshops is despicable exploitation.
The hacker's despicable breach leaked private medical records.
He spoke out against the despicable polluters destroying the reef.
Sabotaging a rival's work is a despicable sabotage.
She denounced the corporate paper tiger as despicable greed.
The smear ads were despicable attempts at character assassination.
He called the bribery scandal despicable corruption.
Kidnapping is a despicable violation of human rights.
She found the hack's despicable motives appalling.
Attacking volunteers is despicable disregard for goodwill.
He labeled the campaign's insults despicable politics.
Refusing medical care to children is despicable negligence.
She stood against what she called despicable corporate exploitation.
The counterfeiter's despicable goods endangered public safety.
He condemned the despicable use of torture in interrogations.
Dumping waste in rivers is a despicable environmental crime.
That completes our exploration of despicable and its use in condemning contemptible acts.
Despise is a verb.
It means to feel contempt or a deep repugnance for someone or something.
I despise liars who break trust repeatedly.
She despises hypocrisy in her coworkers.
He despises wastefulness and always recycles.
They despise the taste of cilantro due to genetics.
She has learned to not despise challenges, but embrace them.
He despises the politicians flip-flopping on issues.
We all despise injustice when we witness it.
She despises the sound of nails on a chalkboard.
He openly despises his rival's dishonesty.
Many despise the smell of durian fruit.
She secretly despised being passed over for promotion.
He despises bullies for targeting the vulnerable.
We despise mediocrity when striving for excellence.
She despised the idea of cutting corners.
He despises lateness and values punctuality.
They despise the exploitation of garment workers.
She despises empty promises in personal relationships.
He despises spam emails clogging his inbox.
We despise unfair advantage gained by cheating.
She despised the harsh winter's icy roads.
He despises being patronized by know-it-alls.
She despises the sight of litter on the beach.
They despise being interrupted in conversations.
He despises slow internet connections during work.
She despises the prejudice shown to refugees.
He despises noisy eaters in movie theaters.
They despise unnecessary bureaucracy at the office.
She despised having to lie to protect feelings.
He despises empty vanity projects without meaning.
We despise corruption in public institutions.
She despises the misuse of public funds.
He despises dishonorable retreats in sports.
They despise the erosion of civil liberties.
She despises unkind comments online.
He despises the waste of precious resources.
We despise the practice of price gouging in crises.
She despises being talked down to as a woman in tech.
He despises arrogant attitudes in social settings.
They despise the neglect of the elderly in care homes.
That's how we use despise to convey deep contempt.
Dignified is an adjective.
It describes someone who shows worthy self-respect and poise.
She gave a dignified speech acknowledging her critics.
He remained dignified even under harsh questioning.
The Queen's dignified manner impressed visiting dignitaries.
She handled the setback with dignified grace.
He wore a dignified expression at the memorial.
The ceremony proceeded with dignified solemnity.
She offered a dignified apology after the misunderstanding.
He accepted defeat in a dignified handshake.
The veteran's dignified bearing moved the audience.
She conducted the interview with dignified calm.
He showed dignified restraint when provoked.
The ambassador maintained a dignified composure under stress.
She approached controversy with dignified honesty.
He greeted everyone with a dignified nod.
The award recipient gave a dignified acceptance speech.
She left the room with dignified silence.
He walked away in a dignified manner when insulted.
The team's dignified conduct saved face for the organization.
She displayed a dignified patience with the bureaucrats.
He insisted on a dignified resolution to the conflict.
She dressed in dignified attire for the gala.
He spoke with dignified authority on the panel.
She treated the elderly with a dignified respect.
He left a dignified legacy through charitable acts.
She handled criticism in a dignified fashion.
He moved through the crowd with dignified courtesy.
She wrote about living with dignified integrity.
He maintained dignified silence during the verdict.
She bore adversity with dignified resilience.
He held a dignified vigil for the lost hikers.
She ended the relationship with dignified honesty.
He offered a dignified tribute to his mentor.
She gave the speech with dignified eloquence.
He walked away from the scandal with dignified dignity.
She aged with dignified wisdom.
He counseled others to live a dignified life.
She used dignified restraint in negotiations.
He conducted the meeting with dignified formality.
She faced the press with dignified composure.
That's how we use dignified to describe noble conduct.
Dignity is a noun.
It refers to the state or quality of being worthy of honor and respect.
She maintained her dignity despite harsh remarks.
Patients deserve dignity in every medical setting.
He spoke about restoring dignity to the unemployed.
Refugees need dignity in the resettlement process.
The protest demanded dignity for low-wage workers.
She held her head high, refusing to lose her dignity.
He treated his opponent with dignity after the match.
The memorial honored heroes of dignity and sacrifice.
She taught that dignity begins with self-respect.
He argued for dignity in the prison system.
Restoring dignity after disasters requires compassion.
She advocated for dignity in end-of-life care.
He described the victim's plea for dignity in court.
The policy ensured basic dignity for all citizens.
She wore the Medal of Dignity from her alma mater.
He believed dignity is non-negotiable even in war.
She refused to beg, preferring to keep her dignity.
He saw dignity restored in the reconciliation ceremony.
She fought for dignity in the workplace.
He helped build homes that instilled dignity in residents.
She said, everyone deserves their dignity intact.
He described poverty's assault on personal dignity.
She praised volunteers who preserve the homeless' dignity.
He wrote an essay on dignity in modern society.
They marched to defend dignity for all genders.
She counseled parents on preserving children's dignity.
The charity's mission is to restore human dignity.
He insisted on dignity even in harsh interrogations.
She found dignity in overcoming addiction.
He lectured on dignity as a human right.
She modeled dignity in every public appearance.
He fought for elder dignity in care homes.
She studied cultural rituals preserving dignity.
He gave a speech on protecting dignity online.
She created a foundation for veterans' dignity.
He believed technology must preserve user dignity.
She saw dignity in everyday small kindnesses.
He ended exploitation to restore human dignity.
She told stories of courage and dignity in crisis.
That's how dignity underpins all respectful action.
Follow in somebody's footsteps is a phrasal verb.
It means to do the same thing as someone else did before, often in career or life path.
He decided to follow in his father's footsteps and become a doctor.
She hopes to follow in her mentor's footsteps as a pilot.
Many aspiring actors follow in celebrities' footsteps, moving to Los Angeles.
He chose to follow in his grandmother's footsteps as a teacher.
She wanted to follow in her sister's footsteps into law school.
He promised to follow in the community leader's footsteps, serving others.
Many chefs follow in Gordon Ramsay's footsteps by training in London.
She decided to follow in her idol's footsteps and write poetry.
He urges students to follow in Nobel laureates' footsteps in research.
She told her son to follow in his aunt's footsteps and volunteer.
Some engineers follow in Elon Musk's footsteps, exploring space.
She plans to follow in the footsteps of her heroes in activism.
Actors often follow in their parents' footsteps on Broadway.
He followed in Steve Jobs' footsteps by founding a startup.
She watched documentaries to follow in explorers' footsteps.
He wants to follow in his coach's footsteps to the Olympics.
Many students follow in Nobel winners' footsteps in labs.
She decided to follow in her partner's footsteps teaching dance.
He plans to follow in his teacher's footsteps by becoming an educator.
She hopes to follow in her mother's footsteps as a nurse.
Many writers follow in Shakespeare's footsteps, studying his works.
He felt inspired to follow in suffragettes' footsteps in campaigning.
She followed in her coach's footsteps to win gold medals.
He decided to follow in astronaut footsteps, applying to NASA.
She followed in the footsteps of pioneers in her field.
He wants to follow in activists' footsteps, lobbying for change.
Many musicians follow in Mozart's footsteps by mastering classical music.
She urged interns to follow in innovators' footsteps by creating solutions.
He aims to follow in his brother's footsteps in service to community.
She chose to follow in Greta Thunberg's footsteps, leading climate strikes.
He hoped to follow in his grandfather's footsteps, farming the same land.
She followed in the footsteps of her role model, always learning.
Many entrepreneurs follow in Steve Jobs' footsteps with product design.
She felt honored to follow in her teacher's footsteps, shaping young minds.
He watched videos to follow in master craftsmen's footsteps.
She tried to follow in athletes' footsteps by training daily.
He will follow in pioneering footsteps by exploring new tech.
She followed in the footsteps of activists to win rights.
He aimed to follow in Nobel Prize footsteps by publishing breakthroughs.
That's how you use follow in somebody's footsteps to honor those before you.
That concludes our deep dive into these 5 essential English expressions.
We hope you feel confident using despicable, despise, dignified, dignity, and follow in somebody's footsteps in your conversations.
Thank you for listening, and we look forward to sharing more vocabulary insights next time.
Goodbye and keep practicing every day.